Hello everybody, Keith here. We're going to wait a few minutes, see if we can get some people on here. I know I'm a little early tonight. Hadn't planned on doing this today, but video I just recently did on the UCC. I wanted to get back out here real quick and show people how to break this down in regular common English, plain English. They really don't they really don't like you using their codes, and their codes are just the numbers at the beginning of it. So when you refer to UCC codes and stuff, it's a sticky area because people say that they're copyrighted and stuff. And in reality, you really shouldn't be using the codes themselves, which is, again, like I said, it's just the numbers, deciding which sections. But the words themselves, you just got to break them down into words that you can use yourself in being able to reserve your rights and walk the administrator or cop along the roadside if you can manage to do that. I wouldn't bother messing with them anymore. I'd just go ahead and accept their contract and do it in a certain way. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. In regards to my post earlier, my video earlier about UCC for beginners, using the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, the letters UCC, and then the numbers 1-308 or reference to any part of the UCC in and of itself is actually using the UCC. But as we already talked about, and it is explained in the UCC under the reservation of rights 1-308, it talks about using any like words being sufficient for a reservation of rights. So when you use things like all rights reserved without recourse, things like that, that's all acceptable. And knowing that, we have to discern for ourselves what words we want to use in accordance with anything else that we want to use in the UCC without actually using the UCC. So in my previous video, I talked about the UCC 1-308, 1-103, 1-105, 1-202, 3-502, and 9-402. Those are the basic elements of the UCC that I think are important, and I'll go through them again real quick. The UCC 1-308 is your reservation of rights. The 1-103 talks about the hierarchy of law, and that there's supposed to be some kind of uniformity within the laws throughout all of the jurisdictions. And that goes back to the old one. It used to be under UCC 1-207, where it said the code was in harmony with that of the common law. And that's basically what this 1-103 is saying. It's just saying it in a different way. So understand, when we're using the UCC codes, we can use them without using the codes themselves. We just say them in a different way. Okay? So when we do this, we're just going to interchange these codes with just common English words. And so we're going to start out with our reservation of rights by letting them know, okay, I'm going to do this from in here. It's a little bit darker in here, but you can still see me. Basically, when we make our reservation of rights, we can, like it says in the code, you can use any like wording. And the ones that I like to use is, I adhere to all of my rights. Period. There's no ambiguity in that. I don't have to declare that I waive none or anything like that. I just make it very clear. I adhere to all of my rights. And the reason I use adhere is because when we're talking about the UCC, we're talking about adhesion contracts. So if they'd like to adhere me to my rights, then they can amend any contract they want, and we'll go from there. So it's just a matter of playing the words against them. I like doing that kind of thing, you know. But anyway, along with that, you can include things like, I would suggest none waived, and I accept responsibility for my behavior. A man behaves, a person acts according to the actions that the man puts them through. So remember that. A man behaves, a person acts. So like I said, I stick to all rights adhered to. I adhere to all rights. But you can put other things in there, just like before. I reserve all rights reserved without recourse, blah, blah, blah. There's different ways you can do it. And some people use VC, just the initials VC, which means via coactus, which means under duress. Some people use UTD, under threats and duress, or UTDC, under threats, duress, coercion, whatever. As long as the intent is put out there first, and then you authorize. And when we talk about, and that's a perfect example when we talk about like wording, the part about the things being in harmony with each other is that the like wording doesn't necessarily mean written wording. It can be a verbal expression. It can be a symbolic expression, such as abbreviations, TDC, UTDC, VC. They can also be made in the form of what grammatically correct is ... You can put a ... 3 periods before something that you say, and that reserves your rights to add on to that something before what you just stated. And if you put the ... after something that you've stated, then that reserves your right to continue speaking about what you've just spoken of. So, and that's just a grammatical reservation of rights. That's all that is. But it's still expressed, and it's still acceptable. You just have to clarify it, period. So then we go on to 1-103, where it talks about the hierarchy of law. And basically what we're going to do is, after we tell them, I adhere to all my rights, we're going to let them know. And I know that all of the laws are supposed to be conform in some kind of unity. There's supposed to be some kind of uniformity throughout the laws. In other words, they're all supposed to be fair. They're all supposed to have a process that's due throughout all of the various jurisdictions. And then basically, again, that's your old 1-207, where it said all codes are construed to be in harmony with that of the common law. And you can use that. You can go right back to that and use that. And just tell them, I understand that all codes are construed to be in harmony with that of the common law. Because that's something that they used in the past, but they don't use it any longer. So now we're going to revert to using that just to shove it down their throat. You know, I understand that all laws are construed to be in harmony with that of the common law. Period. And then we go to 1-105, and it talks about severability. And if you're familiar with the word severability, severability means you can sever away from it. And of course, this is speaking about the capacity to sever any contract that you're in once you find that it's invalid. No matter what the invalidity is, if you find it to be invalid, you can sever from it. Or you can still accept it. But if you prefer to sever from it, you have that severability. And what we're talking about here is that when they approach you in their corporate capacity as a person, while you're in your private capacity as a man, their acts are not supposed to affect your behavior. However, it does. And that's where the compulsion comes in. They compel you to appear in front of a court to continue on with some kind of contractual performance. And so when you do that, you let them know of this severability at that time. You should let them know of it beforehand all the way through. And most likely they're just going to push on through the court. But, you know, because the officer isn't going to know much about this stuff. Most of them don't anyway. Some of them do. And they'll stand up and do what they're supposed to. But most of them don't, and they'll just shove you into court. So you have to let them know that you know of your severability, of the invalidity, and all that. And then, of course, you've got UCC 1-202, whereas you give them notice. And this can be along the roadside when you're verbally speaking to them. And I suggest using video cameras when you're out there. Always use some kind of dash cam, and so that you can record it and let them know that you've given them notice on and for the record. Because now you have evidence that you can take into any court situation and put on and for the record. And therefore, even though it's prior to being on and for the record, it is still on and for the record, because you're able to enter it into evidence on and for the record. And therefore, even though the time hasn't come, it's one of the conveniences about using your head is that it's already on and for the record as long as you've got evidence of it. So remember that. So when you're giving them notice, it's once they're given notice of that knowledge, the public servant has a duty to investigate, so that they no longer go upon a belief or an opinion, but that they know the truth. And that's the importance about giving these people notice, is that they have knowledge. And then we talk about Section 3-502, where it talks about the dishonor, and that it's dishonorable and unconscionable to enforce contractual performance simply based on a belief or an opinion. And that's why I say these officers are supposed to know the law. They're not supposed to be out there doing this stuff based upon their beliefs or opinions, or based upon their compassion or their heart or their disheartening or their hatred or anything. They're supposed to be doing this stuff on knowledge. And if you know it more than they do, and then you use that notice and knowledge to give them that knowledge, and then they don't step up to their duty to investigate so that they know, then they are showing their incompetence, not only in the field, but again, evidence that they're incompetent even if they get on the stand. They're proving that they don't know the law, and they're just out there writing citations willy-nilly because somebody else told them to. Because they're under contract. Because they're just doing their job. So understand this stuff, people. So then when we talk about this dishonor and unconscionable being based on an opinion, it's a fatality in any contract, because it's making it invalid from the onset, because you can't do contracts based on belief or opinion. You have to do them on consent, and consent means you have to have a knowledge of what's going on. So if you believe that you're supposed to get $10 worth of gold-backed money, then you better find out for sure if you're really getting $10 worth of gold-backed money, as opposed to a fucking Federal Reserve note that has absolutely no intrinsic value at all. So, anything using a Federal Reserve note, just so you know, in my opinion, makes the contract invalid. Because any contract has to give consideration. And if you're using Federal Reserve notes, which have no consideration to begin with, and it is clarified under HDR 192 and Public Law 7310 that there is no consideration in Federal Reserve notes. They are intrinsically have zero value. So think about it. So then we go on to the 9-402 part, where we talk about the secured party is not obligated on contract of debtor. And we've already determined that the person that they're charging is a citizen of the United States, which must be clarified with sufficient proof before the court that that person is an artificial corporate person, in order for the court to give permission to the plaintiff to continue pursuing the suit. Period. And that's their fatality all the way through it. That citizen is an obligation of the United States, and you are the secured party. You're the paramount secured party and interest. You're the one that has 9-402 backing you up, saying the secured party is not obligated on contract of debtor. Anytime you sign your name, you're signing as an agent. You're not signing as the debtor. You're signing as the agent for the debtor, and we already know that because the citizen that you're signing for in every case is an artificial corporate person. Period. So who is the obligation? The United States. And then under 9-607, it'll tell you location of debtor. Section H tells you location of the United States is located in the District of Columbia. So that officer that's pulling you over alongside of 123 A Avenue in your hometown, he wants to write out a citation at a United States citizen. Tell him he's got a ways to travel to go issue that goddamn ticket to him. You'll be glad to accept it as his agent, but you've got fees. Otherwise, the fiduciary assignment of every decedent estate and trust fund in the United States, listed under Title 31 of the United States Code, Section 1321, subsection 73, shows that the U.S. Department of State is fiduciary of estates of decedents and public trust, or trust funds. And the Secretary of State, or Secretary of the U.S. Department of State, is Mike Pompeo. Go talk to him. He's the fiduciary of that United States citizen. So think about this stuff. When we use these codes, we do not have to use the numbers. We can use the words. So let's go through this. I can just simply let them know I adhere to all of my rights, and I know that they're construed to be in harmony with that of the common law. And I'm hereby letting you know that I'm foreign to your corporate jurisdiction while acting or while behaving in my private capacity. So I've given you notice, and you now have knowledge that I'm not part of your corporate entity, and I do not wish to contract with you. And if you continue in this would be a dishonorable contract. And under secured party obligations, I am not obligated as on the contract of the debtor. And you know as well as I do, the debtor is the citizen of the United States, an obligation of the United States. So see, you can go through all of that as long as you know the content of the codes that you're using, and you can speak those words. You can tell them, hey, listen, I adhere to all of my rights. I don't consent to your dishonorable contract here because I'm foreign to your corporate person in my private capacity. I'm hereby giving you knowledge that I have that severability under that dishonor through a secured party not being obligated to the debtor. So, and that's why I say it's important to learn this stuff, people. You don't want to use the codes themselves. You want to be able to use the words against them. They say anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Well, be wise. Start using these motherfucking words against them. Let them know you know these words just as well as they do, and that's why they use that. You understand, people? That's why they tell you you have the right to remain silent. And then all of a sudden everybody zips up. Fucking learn the words. So that when they tell you you have the right to remain silent, tell them, no, I will not be silent. I'll let you know. I'll give you notice under UCC 1-202 without using UCC 1-202. I'll give you notice and knowledge of exactly who I am. I'm a living man. I'm not one of your corporate artificial persons. I have rights that I adhere to. And while you're playing your goddamn silly game of Monopoly here, trying to get some kind of dishonorable contract, I'm going to let you know, through the secured party, I'm not obligated to your goddamn United States citizen who is the debtor. Period. So when you learn all these words and you can use them in different ways, you can tell them the exact same information. Several times, three times to wit, and say it three different ways, all three times. And when you get into these courts and you're talking to that goddamn clown in that black robe, and you tell him three times in a row using various different words, he's likely going to get up and walk out. He's likely going to get up and walk out. And just so everybody knows, I'm not sitting here running my mouth. You can do a record search on me here in Iowa. Waterloo, Iowa is where I live, and you can do a record search criminal background record, and you can see all the cases that are still pending or that are sitting up there that have no action on them. There's 11 cases, anywhere from assault to tickets on from the dog catcher, all signed UCC 1-308. And then I just never went to court. I didn't use any of the other codes or nothing. I just put UCC 1-308, and then I signed my name. And then I never went to court. Never once. And there's 11 of them still sitting there. And I've been to jail since, and they never came up while I was in jail, while I went to trial, nothing. They're all signed UCC 1-308. That's the power of it. So again, don't even bother letting people tell you that you can't use the code. You can, you're just not supposed to use it to sell it for profit or anything like that. Because for everybody, just so you know, take a note real quick. Take a note real quick. Take a note real quick. Everybody got their pen and paper? This is important. Your state statutes, your United States Code, your UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. They're all copyrighted by Westlaw. Westlaw, one word. Westlaw. Westlaw has copyright on all of them. All you have to do is call them up and ask them if you can use their codes, and they'll tell you yes. You just cannot use them to make money. You just cannot use them to make income. You just cannot use them to have a profit. You cannot use them to make dividends. That's for them to do. That's their property to make money with. You can use them for information and educational purposes, like I'm doing here. You can use them for educational and informational purposes in courts. You just can't use them for profit. So when people try to tell you you shouldn't be using these codes, in a sense, they're right. You shouldn't be using the codes themselves. You should be using the words within the codes. You should be learning these codes enough so that you know when that officer walks up beside you and tries to contract with you, you can gladly accept his contract by letting him know you have a fee schedule and you will be giving that to the administrators when time comes. That you do not wish to contract, that you reserve your rights, you adhere to them, and that any acts against your wishes is dishonorable. And therefore, you're not obligated to a debt. Pure and simple. Yes, Marks, that would be the UK equivalent. The United Kingdom follows by the Uniform Commercial Code as well. It may not be called the same thing, but it is in fact the same thing. It's your mercantile contract law, just written in a different way. Understand, people, the Uniform Commercial Code, everybody calls that the Uniform Commercial Code for international law. International contract law. Well, then you've got the United States Code, which is just the commercial code for the United States corporation. Then you've got your state statutes, which is just your commercial code for your state corporations. They're all binding by the Uniform Commercial Code. They're all binding by the mercantile law. That's why you see these Admiralty maritime flags in the courts. Maritime mercantile contract law. So understand this. Exactly, Kirk. We're exactly be the law sayer, not the lawyer, the law sayer. In beginning was word. And that's why it's important. You learn these codes, but don't use the codes, use the words. Detangle the words that they're screwing up and perverting and make them true again. Speak from the heart and make them true again. So when they ask if you're a citizen of the United States, you got to know whether you're a citizen of the United States or not, because under Title 18 of the United States Code 911, funny how they call it that one, or put it under that section, but Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 911, says whoever willfully and falsely presents themselves to be a citizen of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. And if you read that and you understand the wording, you understand that you cannot present yourself to be a United States citizen. And if you do, you can be fined and imprisoned. Why can't you present yourself to be a citizen of the United States? Because we all know very well we are living beings, and a citizen of the United States is a corporate artificial person. You yourself cannot be a corporate artificial person. You can only make a corporate artificial person act. You are the puppeteer of the person. You are not the person. Understand that bit. That's important. That citizen is an obligation of the United States. You are not an obligation of the United States. Particularly when you become an adult, you're not an obligation of anybody anymore. You're not obligated to anybody but yourself. Period. So think about this stuff, people. I hope this helps you understand a little bit more about using the Uniform Commercial Code, United States Code, and the state statutes. They're all interchangeable. They're all the exact same thing, just written different ways. And when we want to use them, we've got to use them in our own words. That's what's going to help them understand that we know what we're talking about. Can't just go in there and write down UCC 1-308 and then walk into court and not know how to explain it. If you're going to use UCC 1-308, use UCC 1-308 and then just don't go to court. Because you already know it means you don't have to go to court. You're not consenting to contract. If you walk into court, you're consenting to contract. You're doing so in a physical form of communicating that you now wish to contract, even though you reserved your right not to. So, anyway, that's about all I've got for right now. I just wanted to get back on and clarify the UCC. You can use it any damn way you want, as long as you're not using it for profit. But I suggest using it for your own intents and purposes with due diligence of knowing exactly what you're speaking of. In other words, learn the words within and what they mean, and how to connect the different parts of the code so that you can let them know you know exactly how to use it. It's the true Monopoly game. You have to learn how to play it in order to live. Period. Because they're not going to leave you alone. They're going to want to consistently contract, no matter how well you want to shield yourself from this stuff. There's always going to be the new cops on the beat that are going to think that they're going to be macho and show people how to do things a new way. Well, there's a new dog on the strip. Well, we're going to teach him. Well, remember, all these damn new dogs on the strip running around talking about their fear in their life, and that's why they got all these weapons. Me, you, we walk these same goddamn streets without anything for a weapon. Are you afraid? Think about it. Get over your fears and understand this stuff and learn that this is your way out, is by learning the words that they've screwed up and perverted against you. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and all of a sudden everybody shuts the fuck up and quits learning what the words are. Quit it. Show the rest of the world you know how to communicate with them by learning the words that they're using against you. So anyway, again, one last time, I'm out. If it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing this. God bless. I love you. Have a great night. Bye.